Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bloomington Civic Plaza. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's good to see our council members and our school board members together in our joint meeting. I will officially call this meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. This is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024.
And I will officially call the school board portion of this meeting together for February 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
Very good. Thank you so much. A couple of housekeeping items. The microphones in front of you are off until you turn them on. And you'll know they're on because that green light in front of you will come on. So there's a little button in front that says push. Turn your mic on, and when you're done speaking, if you could turn it off so we don't have any hot mic issues. We've got caught a couple of times there, so you can turn your mic on and off if you could. We've got a series of updates that we're going to be talking through this evening. And as I said, wanted to thank everybody and welcome you to City Hall. It's always a great meeting when we can get the City Council and the school board together for a lot of different reasons. We actually talked about it, Dr. Melby talked about it this morning at a chamber meeting, how unique and important it is that the Bloomington city boundaries and the school district boundaries are coterminous. That doesn't happen often in the Twin Cities. In many school districts, in many cities, you're dealing with 5 city councils. In many city councils, you're dealing with 3 or 4 different school boards. And so for us to be able to sit down like this is unique, and I think it's a source of strength for the city, and I like it when we get together and we can build on this in a lot of different ways. So thank you all for being here for one more meeting in your week. I know everybody has something going on, and you could be anywhere on this Wednesday night, but you choose to be here, so we appreciate that. Before I turn it over to Matt, I did want to say, earlier today, Mr. Verbrugge, Jamie, and I had the opportunity to go to the memorial service over in Eden Prairie for the officers and the EMT from Burnsville who were tragically killed last weekend. And I want to say, folks, you should be enormously proud of your Bloomington Police Department and your Bloomington firefighters for the work that they are doing and the support that they're providing, and just the camaraderie and the empathy and the overall support that they're providing for the folks down in Burnsville. They're doing a lot of work down there. Our firefighters are literally out of their stations. Our police are covering where necessary. We've even had city staff, our communications staff, went down on that Sunday and helped with communications and media issues. And so everybody's been pitching in, and they've done an outstanding job. And today, if not, with the exception of the officers that were actually on the streets in Bloomington, I think every police officer and civilian employee of the Bloomington Police Department were at the memorial service today. So it was something special, and it was a very, very nice service. And but it's nice to see how well represented Bloomington was, and the dignity and respect that the Bloomington officers have been treating this with. And as I said, if you see them, thank them, and congratulate them on their professionalism, on their empathy, and what they've been doing for our neighbors to the south. So with that, I will turn it over to Chair Dimmick and let him give a little welcome himself.
Yeah, I just want to echo the mayor's sentiment and how lucky we are to be able to work together and to come together as 2 bodies periodically throughout the year to talk about organizational business and see how we can work together and get updates from each other. So thank you all for spending some time together here on Wednesday night, and I look forward to what we're going to talk about tonight.
Very good. Thank you. Our first agenda item of this evening is item 2.1. This is a 1970 resolution regarding human rights assistance to the school district. First, a show of hands. Who was not born in 1970? Okay, a lot of folks here. I was. So this is a resolution regarding our human rights assistance, and it's kind of an in-the-weeds kind of thing, and I hope you'll indulge us as we work to correct this. It's just something that we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to address. Mr. Verbrugge, are you going to take this, or are we going to turn it right over to Eric?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we're going to have Melissa Mandeschreider, City Attorney, talk through it. We've been doing code cleanup over the last couple of years, and so this is one item that we wanted to just make the school district aware of. You know, one of our beliefs at the city is embedded as part of our outreach and engagement philosophy is we try not to make decisions without consulting people who are affected by those decisions. And so this is sort of an awareness item, and Melissa's going to get into some of the details.
Thank you for teeing that up. Ms. Manderscheid, good evening, welcome.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Manderscheid, the City Attorney. I'm joined tonight by Eric Holthouse, who is the Human Rights Commission Staff Liaison. He's right here behind me, and he will not hesitate to jump up and answer questions off the mic if I do not know the answer. So again, getting in the Wayback Machine when petrol was 36 cents. John Lennon left the Beatles, or not John Lennon, Paul McCartney left the Beatles, Apollo 13 mission, the first Boeing 747 commercial flight to London. It was a big year. That was what happened in 1970, some highlights. What also happened in 1970 was a resolution. Even going back that long, the school district and the city were working together. And one of the things that they adopted the city council adopted, was a request from the school district to partner on human rights education with the school district. The resolution is in the agenda packet. I won't go through it. It's many pages long. But there are very specific things that, or I should say, very general things in it that were detailed in a lot of words back in 1870, probably on a typewriter. And we came upon this because we were doing, as the city manager mentioned, some code cleanup and looking at our fair housing policy, which trickled into looking at our Human Rights Commission policy. And out of that, we saw this resolution, and we had to get into the Wayback Machine on Laserfiche and find this. And we looked into it, and we thought, you know, we knew this meeting was coming up, and we wanted to have this conversation with you all, make you aware of it. We want to have our code reflect sort of the reality of the day, and a lot has changed since 1970. So before we went and took it out of our city code, we thought we'd press pause on that part of it when we were doing the other cleanup, make you all aware of it. We do plan to take it out of our code, but we didn't want to do that without letting you know. And then wanted to just engage in a brief conversation about any other direction you might want to provide to staff in the audience here or otherwise about next steps, if any. You know, it's. I know that there are some ongoing discussions and work on a wide variety of topics, some of which may include human rights. So possible things could be do nothing, and we'll take it out and we'll continue on as we do in 2024 through the natural efforts that are already in place, or you might want to give some other direction. So with that, Eric, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it well. If there's any particular questions I can be helpful with, but I appreciate that. Great teeing it up.
And the other thing I should mention too, that the Human Rights Commission, before we did this code cleanup, we did run through the Human Rights Commission and through their commission meeting. And so they were made aware of this as well. And I believe, Eric, on the work plan for 2024, Eric mentioned to me that there is a partnership goal in working with the school district intentionally in 2024. So that is already on the books and a part of the work plan. So with that, I guess Eric and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Manderscheid. City Council, any questions?
School board members, any questions?
Mr. Verbrugge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and council members and board members. The one thing I'd say is just to reiterate the last point that Ms. Manderscheid made, and that is that the working relationship is not going to change. In fact, some of you will remember that the strategic plan that the city adopted, there was a point of emphasis in there that one of the things we should be doing for the community is having meetings like this exactly, right? And so the school board and the city council working together is part of our strategic plan, and we're glad that you're here today. So the fact that the language may not be reflected in the code is not reflective of our intent to maintain a working relationship, especially in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Any additional questions? So, Ms. Manderscheid, am I to understand if there's no action here, this is going to be part of the code cleanup that your office is undertaking, and if this gets removed, and we'll move forward and as you said, move into 2024 with the language in the code for the city. Is that correct?
Correct, Mayor and members and school district members. Our plan when we do our next batch of cleanup will be to remove this particular provision that's bolded on page 2 of this agenda item. It is D, clause D of 2.83.02. And so we'll just do that in our normal sort of cleanup. And I would also say that if there's any staff people that have not yet met Eric, he's here, and it would be a good opportunity for any connections to happen so that we can hit the ground running on any relationship building that can grow out of tonight.
Very good. All right. Well, I think given the lack of questions or input, I think that it's the direction, and off you go. So thank you very much. Thanks for bringing this forward. And as you mentioned, introduction to Eric, I realized one of the things that I had on my list, I wanted to make sure we went around the table and introduced each other so everybody knows everyone, because we do have a new Bloomington City Council member at the table with us, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knew who everybody else was. So I will start and we'll head this way, but I just want to make sure, as I said, Victor was on even footing with everybody, but we've met. Thank you for being here, Victor. Thanks for Tim Bussey.
Hi, Victor. I've introduced. Got to get used to the way the city does this stuff with my microphone. I'm Eric Melby, the superintendent. Nice to meet you.
We've met a couple times too. Jenna Carter, at-large council member.
Matt Demick, Vice Chair of the School Board.
Samoa at-large city council member.
Heather Starks, director on the school board.
Nelly Corman, school board director.
Dwayne Lohman, First District City Council members representing the southeast corner of Bloomington.
Beth Beebe, school board clerk, director.
Safa Mercer, city council secretary.
Maya Olson, school board director.
Tom Bennett, school board treasurer.
Victor Rivas, District 4, City Council member.
Sorry, Jamie Verbrugge, city manager.
Well, thank you, and I apologize for not doing that as we kicked off, council member. That was on my plan, and I've neglected that, so I apologize. So we just wanted to make sure you knew everyone. Well, thank you all for that. Moving on to item 2.2 on our agenda, this is a report on the joint chemical and mental health efforts between within the school district and I believe with the city. I have on the agenda here Jennifer McIntyre from Student Services. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Very good. And I see Dr. Kelly moving as well. Is he part of the presentation? Very good.
Yes, actually, I'm going to have Dr. Kelly start, and then
Good evening, Dr. Kelly.
oh, okay. Well, we'll go first. How is that? We're flexible. We'll do that. Okay. Technology, I will be right with you. 1 second. Okay. All right. So thank you, Mayor Bussey, for having us tonight, Superintendent Melby, Director Demick, and members of the school board and of the city council. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Jennifer McIntyre. I'm the Executive Director of Student Services for Bloomington Public Schools, and I will have Hannah introduce herself very quickly.
Yes, good evening and thank you for having us. I'm Hannah Hatch. I'm the Director of Health Services for Bloomington Public Schools.
And we were before you about a year and a half ago talking about our initiatives around chemical health and mental health services within our school district, and then our partnership with Dr. Kelly in working with the city of Bloomington around this issue. And what we wanted to do and what we were asked to do tonight is to come and do an update around the work that we've been doing, particularly within our school district, and then I will hand it over to Dr. Kelly to talk about what we have partnered with in the city. So the purpose for tonight is to truly give you that update on how Bloomington Public Schools is working with our licensed staff all the way from our early childhood. You know, as we start with our birth, we work a lot with our families within the community, going out into homes, having families into our schools and into our programs, all the way up to age 22, where we have students still coming and working with us, and we're doing a lot of work with our adults. Actually, in this area, quite honestly, between 18 and 22, we have quite a few students who we work with very directly. But as they're then entering back into a member of our community and being a part of Bloomington at large. So Hannah and I wanted tonight, as we'd said, to talk about what our external resources of support are, and internally what we're doing within Bloomington Public Schools around chemical health in particular. Last time we met with you, we talked a lot about drawing those connections between mental health and the state of where our mental health was coming back from the pandemic and coming back from distance learning for many of our families. We were seeing such an uprise or an increase in the need for students around the area of mental health, which really led us to understanding and having many meetings with our students, or several meetings with our students. Hannah and I had an opportunity to sit down with focus groups of students to understand the chemical health of not just our students and them coming back and working with us in our schools at that point in time. We've learned a great deal more since then, but also the families in which our students are when they go home at night and living with, what the mental health and chemical health use and abuse in this case that we're going to talk about a little bit has been like. And so for us, we've dug deeper into the reports from our students, the voices of our students, to understand early on what students are being exposed to, and quite honestly, the access that they have here in the city of Bloomington. That has been one of the cornerstones that Hannah and I really looked at early on, and now we're looking deeper into that connection between mental health and chemical use within our schools. Some of the programs that we put into place since we last met, there was a video that we worked closely with Rick Kaufman's department, communications. It's called Let's Be Honest. It's a video that we sent out quite broadly here in the city of Bloomington, but we've shared it across. I've actually had it come back to me from some of my partners across the state in a similar position that I have, that, hey, I saw this video and this is really interesting work and good work that we're doing, just to put the message out there around chemical health use, what we are doing within our district around this issue, and then also around mental health, and the partnerships that we have brought together through doing this video, and being sure that we can have multiple partnerships and agencies coming to the table, because as a school district, we understand education, we understand students and what's happening on a daily basis, but really now having that lens of chemical health, mental health, and having those specialties coming in has been very helpful for us. We have hosted a number of guardian awareness events and providing events through our learning supports department for families to come in. We've had guardian awareness events in a couple of different areas. Chemical health use is one of them. The impact of technology and the impact that has on bullying and other areas. We have had those guardian awareness events. They have been well attended. We also are recording them and making them available through a resource library. We will continue that with our chemical health partnerships that we have. We did host a live community engagement that we focused on substance use. Phase Zero Recovery Services is an agency that we actively work with. We hold a contract with them, and they are providing direct services to students in chemical health. They do one-on-one group, or they do group meetings with students. They do one-on-one meetings with students. They do chemical health assessments for us. Hannah will go more into depth on what that programming looks like. We've worked with them now for over a year, and we will continue to contract services with Phase Zero Recovery Services because the outcomes we're seeing have been very positive for the relationships we've been able to create with students who in the past had not come out to talk with us about this. Within Bloomington Public Schools, we have our school social workers, we have school psychologists, school counselors, our school nurses. All four of those groups, those departments meet on a monthly basis and talk about our mental health services and the needs in our community and the needs within our school district. We have a district-wide mental health team that meets on I want to say a bi-monthly opportunity for those groups to come together and share what are we doing, what are the outreach areas that we're seeing and needing, and what is being effective and not effective. So those are areas that since the last time we met, we wanted to update to let you know what we've been doing within the school district and what we've been doing specifically around the area of mental health and then chemical health use. I'm going to have to turn it over to Hannah and have her go a little bit more into depth as to what those areas specifically look like and the student outcomes.
Great, thank you. So just some more detailed updates for you on the work that we've been doing over the past year is that we have had chemical health services, as Jennifer mentioned, accessible for our high school students and our students through age 22. So that means our Choice Alternative School has services, and then our BTC Learning Center also has services for chemical health currently. Since just September, so the 2023 to 2024 school year, already this year, we have, or the agency we are working with has done over 150 individual counseling sessions with students who are struggling with severe chemical use. From February 2023 through July 23, they did 63 individual sessions with students. So you can see how that is increasing this year as the program gets up and running and awareness gets out and students start reaching out for more support. They have been providing chemical health assessments for students, which is a full in-depth assessment. It's actually a huge asset to our district to have that because these assessments are extremely expensive usually for parents or families to get for their child, and they're a very in-depth assessment that then results in a recommendation for services. And so when we talk to our agency that's coming in to do them, any student in our district who's reached the level of having a full chemical health assessment done has actually qualified for intensive outpatient treatment or higher level of care, which means that the students that are giving to that level are really in need of that service and utilizing it. The other piece of that, which is at the bottom there, is that the students who have been referred to treatment have gone, and we've had students go and complete full treatment and been released and coming back to school, which is really exciting for some of our students who are getting that support.
One piece I want to add to that is and when we don't have a system like this in place that has been created within our school system, we have students waiting on waiting lists to have the evaluation completed or to have that chem health assessment done. And so they're sitting on that waiting list waiting for placement. What we've been able to do through working with Phase Zero, which we really are grateful for that, is we've been able to get students assessed, evaluated, and placed in a very short period of time when the substance use is at such a critical level. Otherwise, we have seen students sitting and waiting upwards of 6 to 8 months for any level of assessment to get to treatment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been one of the greatest assets we've seen is that we've really reduced a lot of barriers for students in bringing the support to them. This has also been the same for our families. We've had several parents reach out for support or asking for guidance, and the Phase Zero Recovery Services has done sessions with families and parents to help support them, to help make a safety plan, to help them with a child who maybe doesn't want help or isn't being honest. And so that's been a huge resource to not only our students, but our community and families as well. They also have done case consultation for staff members and caregivers. So this is a lot of our staff work closely with students and know maybe they're struggling or know different areas of their struggle, and they have been able to consult with someone who specializes in that area and get guidance or recommendations. And then they've also been providing more proactive education for students and staff this year. So have met with individual groups who have more targeted questions or need more targeted education, and then have started going into some of our health classes at the high school to do some more proactive education and also just getting the resource out there for students to know and be aware of. So through all this work, what are we continuing to do? We're continuing to work to change the system within Bloomington Public Schools. Part of that is beyond chemical health. So our teams, Jennifer, have worked really hard to develop a new process for risk and threat assessment, which is screening and has done huge work around that this year. We are also doing more chemical use and misuse training, educating our staff on it, educating families and parents, as Jennifer mentioned, and trying to be really proactive in that because a lot of people are just not aware still of the problem that we are facing today around it. We have done a lot of work this year continuing to meet with student and caregiver advisory groups, so our PTSA councils, but also student advisory groups to get feedback from them. And it's been extremely valuable for us to hear from students firsthand. What are you looking for? What do you notice? What trends are you seeing? What would be helpful? And hear that feedback from them. And we've actually gotten a lot of great feedback and started to make changes based off of that, which has been awesome. One, which we'll cover later, has been easier access directly to the resource and service, which has been awesome. We are continuing to expand our chemical health services. So this year they started in Choice, which they didn't have services prior to that. And then they've also been expanding to the middle schools and going there regularly for students in need, which has been great. Based on the student advisory group, we are working to, it's not up and running yet, but working to find a way to implement a self or other referral system. This was something our students came to us about is there a way to have a flyer with a QR code where we could sign up without anyone knowing, or a flyer with a QR code where we could submit something that we're concerned about a friend of ours. And so that was a big feedback from students. Hey, I may not feel super comfortable going to my counselor about this, but maybe I do need help or need the resource. And so we're working on coming up with a plan for that they can be referred and access the resource without necessarily having to go through someone at the school, and then can just directly get support in it. We also have been continuing to work on incorporating and shifting from discipline to accountability and expectations. So changing that mindset of punishing students, but rather really holding them accountable to what is expected and empowering them to be the best version of themselves and be motivated to reach that and have that internal motivation. And so we've been working around that. And then lastly, we've done a lot of work this year with our research, evaluation, and assessment team, and we'll get to that further. So, like I said, Julio and his team has done a lot of work around our research and evaluation, because we really wanted to look into is what we're doing making a difference? Are we picking up on the correct trends, and were we right when we looked at what was underlying some of this? And so we just looked through all the data this year from our department, and Julio did a great job sorting through that and giving it to us, and it was surveyed of grades 6 through 12. And so we won't go through all the data, but I just wanted to cover some trends that we noticed with you. So we noticed in the results that there was an increase in substance use significantly associated with a low sense of belonging, and low self-efficacy. So we kind of knew that going in. We suspected that. We knew those were risk factors, but it definitely showed up as very statistically significant in students who were reporting. So what that means is if they did not feel a connection at school with someone or feel like they really belonged and someone cared about them, they were much more likely to report a high percentage of use of substances versus those who reported that they really felt connected and like they belonged and were cared about at school. The other trend we noticed is that as they got older, so our 11th and 12th graders were reporting quite a bit more use than younger grades, which maybe not shocking, but there was a significant jump in our two older grades. We also noticed that not anyone who is identifying as a non-cisgender, they did report higher substance use and abuse on the survey, and then again not being connected at school. So really this survey was really just affirming that we were correct in some of the underlying concerns and risk factors that we were seeing with students. The other really big piece that stood out to us is students reported really high that they thought others were using, like even if they reported that they don't use, it was pretty much across the board that students were reporting that they felt like those around them were using, which was interesting, and it was very consistent and across the board that way, that the perception of use is very high among our youth. So with all of that data and where we're at and the support that we're doing, we wanted to just bring you some next steps that we're looking at. So we are looking to expand chemical health awareness down to 5th grade. That was an ask actually from our PTSA council that they would really like some of the education and support to start being expanded even younger to get ahead of kind of when students are starting to maybe access it or come upon that. We also are looking at how we can connect this resource to other work we're doing. So we as a team have talked a lot about when a threat assessment comes up and flags any sort of chemical use, how can we connect this resource to provide more support for our teams within the school? A great example is we've already connected some students who maybe pop up on, principals' radars for behaviors in school, and we find out that there's a lot of use in their home. Phase Zero has actually been able to meet with students who maybe aren't using, but they're surrounded by use, and that's been a really valuable resource as well, to help them create a safety plan for themselves and to provide regular check-ins and support for them around that. So we wanted to connect that, like I said, with the threat assessments and the other work that we're doing so that we're sure that we're supporting our teams and connecting those resources to students who really need it. We are continuing to reduce barriers of access to the chemical health services. We are bringing it directly to the student at no cost and working with students and families to really expand the resource and make sure that there are no barriers in place for them to receive services around this. We also continue to work in collaboration with our Alternative to Suspension program. When someone is going to the Alternative to Suspension program and spending a day there, they are now starting to talk with students and ask them questions. And if chemical use comes up as a big problem for the student, then they're working to connect them with our chemical health resources, which is great. And then lastly, we're extremely excited because we have gotten fulfillment of 2 current grants through Hennepin County Opioid Services and Hennepin South Services Cooperative. And so we got those grants. We spent a lot of time applying for them and working towards them to kind of help continue to fund this work within our schools. And we know that it's more encompassing, with the community. We want to continue to partner with the community and get ahead of it. As you can see, we really identified those risk factors, and we feel we have some great ideas to try and get ahead of that and really get our students connected back to each other and to have connection with some meaningful adults within our district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely is from the research that Dr. Caesar, who's here with us tonight, was able to provide us, helped us, as Hannah was saying, kind of validate, but also push us further to say what are our next steps. Because when, as adults, we're thinking we know what a meaningful relationship is with our students. When we do focus groups with students, our students are like, that's not a meaningful connection. This is what we mean by that. So we know as the adults going into this, we have work to do here to understand what truly our students are needing. And we're thankful. We're thankful that the word of mouth is out, that we're seeing an increase of need, or not necessarily need, but of identifying, of coming out to talk to folks about it in our schools. That has been encouraging to us to be able to say, yes, we're getting there somehow. And so we're just hoping these next steps to push even further. So we do have an opportunity for questions, but perhaps it'd be better to pass on to Dr. I was going to call you Cage. I don't know why. Kelly. To Dr. Kelly, sorry.
Well, thank you. Yes, we'll jot your questions down if you have any, and we will come back, and so don't go far.
Okay,
so,
great.
Dr. Kelly.
Mayor, council members, chair, and directors. It's a pleasure to be here again, and as you heard from Hannah and Jennifer, there is an awful lot that needs to be happening and is happening at the school district level, meeting some really emergent and immediate needs. This is data you saw about 1.5 years ago. Really reinforces some of the reality of what you just heard. And the student survey data just keeps reinforcing some of that work. The reality of that connection was one of the things that we talked about 1.5 years ago, of feeling that disconnection. And that's a reoccurring theme that we keep seeing too. One of the things that I wanted to remind you about is there is a substantial opioid investment that is happening, and We are working through that process to get to meet some of those needs, really driven by, as you can see, there's $3.5 million we're working through serving Bloomington, Edina, and Richfield. That work is really being driven by a collaborative work group that's driving a plan. And that plan is moving forward in some major areas. We are continuing to work through that process of like, how do we best pivot and move some of a funding process that is, settlements are not something we're always used to processing on our end. Grants, contracts, we do those all the time. But some of those nuances of complying with the settlement are a little bit more complicated. So we're trying to make sure we're doing that correctly so that we can do that well moving forward. All of you are aware of the brain health program that BPD launched, the really innovative approach to tackling some of the issues you just heard conversations about and some of that gap in getting access to care with the police department last winter. I'm looking forward to when we can come back with Chief Hodges and talk about what that pilot looks like and how the outcomes are. We're continuing to look at how we get out some of the opioid funding, whether it's an RFP or an RFI or some of that process. We're hoping that will happen soon. One of the things that's happening that may not have been on your radar is we use some of our COVID recovery funding to work on this recovery work. We've had this incredible partnership with the district where we've been able to do these mental health pop-ups in several schools with largely a middle school population and get some incredible data using a very, very interactive process with Marnita's table. And so they are wrapping up some of those. They're doing some more with some older adult populations and a couple of more. And as we pull that stuff together, that is going to be an incredible source for us to keep doing that partnership and drive with the district on how do we do some of this work. It's amazing what you hear when you break bread together and talk about a common issue. On that point, we are launching our community health assessment process. We're doing a lot of the data work now, but you're going to see a lot more of that this summer. Continuing into 25 as we pull a lot of that stuff together and get that feedback from what's going on. One thing that's really clear is youth mental health and adult mental health is going to be one of those priorities. That's crystal clear with all the data that we're doing with our data and in collaboration with Hennepin and Minneapolis. That is just going to be the primary focus of all that work across those health departments in Hennepin County. So we should be back sometime later this year with more of that engagement report, an idea of how we're going to tackle that issue. It is a growing and complex challenge. One of the ways I'm excited about this is we are taking advantage of an investment that the state of Minnesota has provided to public health. And so we, based on that investment and the opioid settlements, the upcoming cannabis funding, we're going to be able to add 9 full-time staff to our department. A lot of that work is going to be helping on this area because it is there's not always a perfect alignment with what our grants and funding allow us to do and the needs that we see in the community. This is one of those rare times where we are getting some unique funding that's going to let us pivot and do some stuff that we've never been able to do before. So we're going to be creating a substance use, mental health, and policy team on our end that's going to be able to work really closely with our district partners to help do more of that work that we can't do right now, along with a health equity specialist and some resilient staff working on EP and climate issues, and a staff member to really help navigate some of those complex housing issues that are also intertwined so much with the mental health and substance use. So we have some exciting work coming, but there is a lot of challenge, and as you heard, the district is doing incredible work. We're doing everything we can on our back end to try and support and sustain that. And I am looking forward to these new staff coming on board in the next few months and how that can accelerate this work. So I think now's a good time for questions or feedback.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you all very much. Open it up to questions from the council or from the school board. I have a question and maybe just kind of a kickoff here. You've all identified very correctly, obviously, the connection between substance abuse and mental health. I mean, we see that in youth, we see that in the adults population as well. So my question is a chicken and egg question. Do mental health issues lead to substance abuse, or does substance abuse lead to mental health issues, or yes?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Do you see a prevalence one way or the other?
It is kind of a chicken or egg issue. We see students with mental health using substances to numb that or check out from it or an escape from it. We also see students who have used substance use and as a result are seeing some mental health issues from that. So I would say we see it both ways, and the data and research definitely shows that it can go both ways, and it does go both ways. I would say just, and anyone else can correct me if I'm wrong, this is just personal feedback from what I've seen and what I've talked to our Phase Zero regarding. I would say within our district, we tend to see students using substances to numb or escape more often.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate that, because I'm sure it influences the decisions you make about which direction to attack this problem. So the fact that it is yes, I think makes it even more difficult. But I appreciate the candor and the.
And the other thing I'll say on that, the hard thing that we have heard back from Phase Zero is that the really hard thing about that is some substances do a really good job of allowing a student to numb or escape from the mental health or the situation that they're in. And so that can be a really tricky thing, and why support and people who are really experts in it and understand it are really important for those students.
Thank you. Yeah. Councilmember Lohman, and then Councilmember Lohman. I thought Councilmember Carter was going to raise her hand. Councilmember Lohman.
Thank you, Mayor and Chair. So I'm curious a little bit. I've had the opportunity to be, doing some work with the Metropolitan Alliance for Healthy Families until that evolved into something different. And one of the main things they talk about as a part of that is ACEs and the impacts of that, as you kind of move your way through time. And I'm curious about the research and some of the things. And when I say ACEs, I mean adverse childhood experiences. So in case you're not familiar with that, that's what that terminology means. But I'm very curious about, what are you tracking those resources as we go through that? And then I'm also curious about, since we have a demographic shift and change within our schools, are you seeing anything, beyond just the school level, the grade level? Are we seeing pockets with different demographic groups that are part of our public schools?
So we don't actively track ACEs, but we have done quite extensive training around ACEs. We've brought experts in to work with our social work, school psychs, school counselors, nurses, anybody who's working in the mental health area around ACEs. And so in our paraprofessionals, we've brought them in to work with our instructional aides, paraprofessionals around trauma, secondhand trauma, tertiary trauma, like all of those areas, because we're feeling it and experiencing it. And then they themselves, the adults and the practitioners, are also feeling it, experiencing it. So we've done that training. We have recently been talking in the area of risk and threat assessments. Do we bring in ACEs as well? Do we start to look at what would be some of the other pieces of information that we would want to have in looking at if we're doing a screening for risk or threat with a student or a situation? So yes, very much looking at the adverse childhood effect. I would say for different pockets, and Hannah can speak to this as well, what we're seeing within that data that has been provided for us by our research evaluation assessment team. Earlier on, middle school 6th through 8th grade, there's a report of more increased use perhaps in, not significantly, but increased use in alcohol. And then as we're getting older, it's vaping and marijuana, and then also other controlled or uncontrolled substances as they're getting older, as reported by a survey, right? What we do see in pockets when we look across our district is there is seems to be an increase in use of controlled substance in parts of our demographic, and a use of vaping marijuana in other demographic or parts of our district. So we definitely are seeing different types of use, which does help us to kind of focus in on that training with those mental health teams, but then also as we're targeting that deeper one-on-one chemical health substance use. So.
Go ahead.
And if I could, the reason why I'm interested in that is, we've made an investment, to some degree without those early families, and I'm curious to see if those families that have gotten some of that assistance and help, what's the impact later on? Are we seeing those reemerging later on? Because, oftentimes we make the case that if we make this investment earlier on, we're getting some dividends off of that. So that's sort of the reason why I'm kind of asking the question with the ACES piece.
Mayor, Councilmember Lohman, the question on the investment side, we are not in a position to track individuals that we provided some of that intensive home visiting. That is sometimes a mobile population. What we do see, though, is that consistency in the literature that strong foundation does have significant protective factors and helps overcome some of those adverse childhood experiences. But our ability to do some of that stuff would be fairly complicated with privacy and other issues. But there is that strong correlation without those protective factors, like some of the things the district's doing, some of the early childhood work we do and the district does, that ACEs do increase the likelihood of substance use.
Councilmember Mua.
Thank you, Mayor and Chair. What I found really interesting was just the piece about community and belonging between both the city and the school district. And I know the city, we've done a lot of work to identify that sense of community is vitally important to the prosperity of Bloomington. And I started thinking as you guys were speaking about how so many, when you think about like outstate Minnesota, so many small towns thrive around the school district, right? When the school district does well, the city does well. Everyone can have that sense of collaboration and connection that this is where we belong. Our children are doing great things. We want to celebrate that. And as we have heard many times, Bloomington is a big, small city, right? But sometimes when we're this big, it feels like that, but it can also get lost. So as we've identified and understand that the school and the city need to work together, I'm wondering, like, what more can we do to create that sense of connection between residents and the school district, to create that Bloomington pride, so that we can kind of build that and make sure that students feel connected to their schools, to their peers, and also that we have something to celebrate. So whether you have kids in the school district or not, we can cheer on Bloomington because we know Bloomington schools are doing great things. So maybe not so much a question, but a thought and idea of how we can continue to collaborate and celebrate that and build that connection through the school to have that Bloomington pride.
Mayor, Councilmember Mua, that is an astute point. When I talked about our community health assessment, a lot of that is going to be framed up around the Surgeon General's warning on social isolation. There are policy options, there are engagement events, there's other things in there that as our staff are looking at that and talking with our partners, we are seeing some strong alignment with outcomes in BTT, some of the youth town halls that the city has done, some of the racial equity action plan work. There is a lot of alignment that I think we will see some really nice synergy and build on a lot of the incredible work the district's doing and will continue to be doing that will allow us to address that.
So I couldn't agree more. And I just to share a couple of experiences I've had in probably the last 6 months in the district. It really excites me. And your question and your thoughtfulness in the sense of community, in the sense of pride with Bloomington really comes out. So beginning of last fall at Valley View Middle School, one of our middle schools, we brought in food trucks and we had families come in. And so families came in and have dinner, and then they were able to participate in the school activities and really hang out in that general area. And I actually brought my kids up with me and everything. And people were there, like the community came out, and it was just such a sense of you could feel it, right? You could feel that sense of this is the Valley Valley View Middle School Pride. That was really great to feel. Our teams within our Office of Equity and Education have brought together with St. Michael's in town here. On Saturdays, we've opened up, or St. Michael's has been wonderful to open up their doors to bring in any of our newcomers or some of our families that are in our overflow shelters in the community here in Bloomington. And the first day they did this, it was a little bit of hesitation, not sure what to think. But now that they've done it a couple of times, what I'm hearing is there's just an outpouring of the kids are getting to know each other and they're playing, and there's just a sense of trust and a sense of community and that sense of coming together. And so there are examples like that. Those are two I personally know because I've seen them recently. But examples like that in our district and in our community, I think of whenever I get the Bloomington Farmers Market and the places where people are like out playing music and you come to join that, getting to see the superintendent sing in the summer with, you know what I mean? Like that's just a sense of pride, right, in Bloomington, which I couldn't agree with you more, to give that sense of belonging, a sense of we are one, right, as a city and as a school district. So more that we can do like that, I think, and if people are asking for it because they use their feet to show up, I think we need to do more of that. Yeah.
Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you. I know it's a lot of really hard and a lot of hard work, not just from like a time and energy perspective, but from an emotional perspective. So again, thank you. And I think I was just reflecting back on a couple years ago when you came and presented the student survey data, and I mean, it was devastating and we weren't doing as much. And so to see all that is now happening across the school district and with public health and the partnerships, and I know a lot, you're building on many years of partnership, I know that, but it just makes me feel so hopeful, and I feel like we'll continue to see ripple effects, right? It will just continue to build upon itself. And then to Councilmember Mua's question and your comments, I do think it would be interesting to go back to the data and figure out like who in our community is really feeling that sense of isolation, and are there trends, and then what would be the things that are meaningful to those specific groups of people? Because I mean, I have kids in the school district and they're in sports and they're super active and we feel really connected and we love it, but I know that's not the experience, right, of everybody. And so yeah, that's just kind of one of the things that I'm thinking about, is just what does the data show us in terms of who is disproportionately impacted, which I'm assuming that you are looking at that. But yes, again, really, initially all I wanted to do is just say thank you.
Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the tardiness. Can't move a meeting around 4 times and expect everybody to show up to it, I don't think. Sorry about that. I had other obligations earlier. I'm glad I got to see your presentation. Thank you. We have a new program in Bloomington that's run through our Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging called the Welcome to Bloomington program. I was curious about how I do know that there's some folks from the district on that. It's this Saturday is the first one, I think, at 9 Mile Brewing, for example. I'm curious about how you are thinking about using that program to do some of that engagement that you're talking about and meeting people where they're at. If you could articulate what you might be, planning to do in those welcoming meetings, and how moving from that then to the follow-ups and things like that would keep those folks engaged, knowing especially that some of the folks that you might be working with in the district aren't necessarily from Bloomington, and so like how do you reach them, knowing that they might not be going to they might not think to go to those things, because they don't live here, but working here, playing here, all those kinds of things are important reasons to be engaged as well. Just curious on your thoughts, and if you're planning to attend and what you all are doing. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm gonna give my best answer I can for that, and then I'll turn it over to Hannah if she has more to share. I don't necessarily know how to directly answer your question, because I know that we have plans on that partnership and how we are utilizing like the event that's happening this Saturday, and then the following Saturday is the event at St. Michael's. And really where we have been really successful, particularly in the families that are coming and now are coming consistently, has been word of mouth and being able to get that information out through our Office of Equity. in education, we've been able to really talk to families and families that have come, and then sharing that out to other families. Now, are there families that we are missing? Yes, there are. But our teams, I know, and I'm misspeaking for Miss Dina Wade, who is fantastic in our district and does this work. I know she's going out into the community and working with families to make them aware of the events that are occurring, so that they can come in and be engaged with that. It has really taken a life of its own, so that's encouraging. I know for her entire team that we are ahead now planning the event that we're going to have in August, similar to what we had last August. So I know they've gotten the Saturdays planned out through the end of the school year, and then already starting into next fall for family events like this to create. So our hope is that through that word of mouth, through that encouragement, through a really nice show of folks from the district that are coming to build those relationships with people, knowing it's relationship based. That's my best way to answer that without having Miss Wade here to answer you more directly on that. Yes.
Yeah, I think I would echo what Jennifer said, and just to add to it is that I know the district has been working really hard and having lots of conversation about adding different welcoming resources for families at those events. So, for example, we have been working to set up vaccination clinics for families and vision and hearing screenings for families and resources to refer them to. And then also we just had a meeting this week, the district mental health team, to work on inviting our staff to be there as a familiar face, to welcome students or welcome their students that may be new to the school in. So sending it out to all of our nurses and encouraging our nurses to go there. And I know I have several nurses who are bilingual who want to show up to help and support and be a familiar face. So I think we have been trying to work from multiple different angles just to help families feel welcome and continue that support for them. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivas.
First of all, thank you so much for the hard work that you do on a daily basis. Out of curiosity, I just have a question that has to do with legalizing marijuana due to the fact that the challenges that you deal with on a daily basis with young students. Does it have a negative effect? Is there any data or studies on regards to the legalization of marijuana and affecting the young generation of users at the middle school or high school level?
Yeah, I can try to speak to that as well. So I think we presented on this about a year and a half ago about how we were anticipating that wave to come through, and we've definitely seen it. Really what happened with the legalization is access, right? A lot more students have access to it, and it's easy access. The other thing that's happened with it is it's in all sorts of forms. It's really hard to even identify if someone has it because it can be in a drink, it can be in a snack, it can be in a lot of different forms that are really easily concealed and hard to even identify. The negative impact that we see and research has shown or we've learned about from our partners is that really on a developing brain, it can have some pretty significant impacts. A lot of our students who are using it are still developing, and their brains are still developing, and having the strength of marijuana that they're using on a developing brain can have a really significant impact and cause a lot of different side effects for them. The other piece is just that the marijuana that we are seeing, or THC we're seeing nowadays, is a lot more potent than what we saw, 9 times more potent than what we had seen before. And so we are seeing those impacts. We do see the side effects on students, and we do have them access medical care because of it, occasionally. And so we are seeing that impact. And I would say the biggest thing has been access, and then the form of it that we're seeing throughout schools.
Mayor, Councilmember Rivas, I would also remind everybody here that the cannabis funding that I alluded to was specifically authorized by the legislator when they legalized cannabis to support prevention activities from a public health standpoint to minimize the impact on individuals under 21, pregnant people, and other vulnerable populations. And so that's what we are going to be pivoting when that funding shows up sometime this summer, and we can hire a health educator to help do some of that work with the district to help minimize those consequences and help protect the health and well-being of the students.
Thank you.
Director Corman.
Thank you. I'm just trying to not become too passionate about this because I live it every day in the classrooms, right? Every single one of those topics that we are addressing tonight. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the alignment that we have here tonight. You know, when we're talking about human rights, and we're talking about our kids, and we're talking about the well-being of our students, of our youth, and how we can better support them. And I'm so glad that you brought up the fact that during Saturdays, St. Michael's has been helping us by providing a space for our kids to be kids, to have a space where they can just do something different other than being inside a room where they cannot come out, right? And so I'm very appreciative of the partnerships that we have with some of our churches and in other groups and organizations, and that we have this common support, right? That we're working together here, school board and city council. And I think it's definitely very important when we're talking about newcomers, who we also call multilingual students, that we do that follow-up. What is happening with them? What's happening in their lives? And to be aware that our students have gone through a lot of trauma, not only because of the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, they have to move from country to another country to another country, missing school probably for 2-3 years for some of the cases, having to go to work, and then crossing and coming here in a way that is like many of us cannot even imagine the things that they go through during that time and what they see. So, of course, mental health and prevention and support and opportunities, and giving those opportunities to the kids to have other things they can do after school, activities, things that a kid should actually be able to do, right? Just the normal things, enjoyable things. And so as we continue to work with our community, with all our students, but as we look at the students that have gone through this severe trauma, to make sure also that the living conditions are the right ones. So I just wanted to say thank you.
And thank you, Director Coleman, for the perspective that you bring. I appreciate it. This has been a fantastic conversation. Well, I want to get moving on. Let's get one more question, and we'll make sure we get through our agenda this evening. So if we could. Director Beebe. Oh, no, you can jump in at any time. Anytime.
Yeah, I heard some acronyms, and I wasn't sure what they meant. One was, you mentioned about RFPs and RFIs, BER, and CHIP.
Director Beebe. So RFP, request for proposal, RFI, request for information. BER would be Bloomington, Edina, and Richfield, and CHIP is the Community Health Improvement Plan. It's a partnership with Hennepin County, Minneapolis Public Health, and us working on behalf of Edina and Richfield to do community health improvement planning in partnership based on our community health assessment. Another acronym would be the CHA we throw out sometimes. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? And to your question, Director Beebe, this is, just because we have the home field advantage doesn't mean we get to go first. Anybody can jump in at any time. Please do. Please do. Thank you all very much for the work you've done. Thanks for your presentation tonight, and look forward to the next update the next time we're together. More good news. Thank you so very much. Item 2.3 on our agenda is an update on the Bloomington Schools Tech Hub. Got John Weiser and Dr. Alexandra Holter on the agenda here, but I know that there's a certain superintendent who's very excited about this schools tech hub. And Dr. Melby, did you want to kick this off for us at all? Or?
Well, Mayor Bussey's probably referring to the fact that I was cheerleading. Yes, I did cheerlead in college a little bit. That's another story for another meeting, probably. But at the there might be pre-internet, so probably not. At the chamber event this morning, because there were a lot of new folks in the room, small business owners, residents, who every time I go to a meeting, I ask people, "Hey, are you familiar with language immersion schools in other districts, Spanish immersion, French immersion, whatever that might look like?" And everybody's hand goes up all the time. And then I say, "How many people know Bloomington has a computer science immersion program?" And a handful of hands come up, and that's where I take advantage to educate folks in the room about the good work we're doing. We're literally leading the state in our computer science programming. The School Board Association had their annual conference downtown a couple months ago, and the theme of the opening day was all about computer science programming. And I think us from Bloomington who were there were swelling with pride, and then wondered how many people knew how swelling with pride we were because of the programs we have in Bloomington. So any opportunity we get to have these guys come up and share the work we're doing in technology is important. So thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely, Dr. Melby. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Demick and Mayor Bussey and City Council and school board members. I'm John Weiser, Director of Technology for Bloomington Public Schools. I'm here with Dr. Alexandra Holter, our computer science coordinator for the district. I love the pride that is being demonstrated all the time around our efforts, and I often get this opportunity to present what I feel is like a team's work and other people's work. So a lot of what you're seeing here is a program that Alexandra and team continue to build with teachers in classrooms and a lot of support from community as well as our staff. Just to set out what we're going to talk about for the next 15 minutes or so, we want to give a high-level overview of what computer science looks like, the field of computer science in the state of Minnesota. Spoiler alert, we're not in a great position currently. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Bloomington's role in keeping the city or the name Bloomington in the minds of people as a technology leader in the state, which I believe we are as a school district, and I believe we are as a community based on the number of high-tech businesses in our community and the partnerships we have with those businesses. We've gotten some results so far, so there's places of prominence that we can really be proud of that we want to highlight, and then how we can move forward together. So you'll get the opportunity to volunteer to work with small children and share your expertise. Well, before I get into this rather complicated slide, I'll just tell a little bit of a story. So I get to be the dad of a 27-year-old, almost fully formed human. Ivan was, school was a struggle for him, not always a great fit for school, but we got him through it. He got his degree in biology at St. Cloud State University. 2 years ago, he was launched into the world, got his first job, landed a great job in a bio lab at the U of M, so got to do what he was passionate about with his biology degree. A year later, that biology lab shut down. It's kind of complicated stuff that goes on with money and financing in higher ed, and he was left without a job. And at that point, as we were trying to help him figure out what to do next, he said, the part of the job I liked the best was the data analysis and the technical work. He went in for biology, but it became a very technical job in the end. Pivot 1 year later, he now works for United Healthcare. They've been training him for the last year to be a computer science programmer. So I say that story to say, the job market today for all of our kids is different than probably when you and I were growing up. And most careers, almost all careers, are touched by really a lot of high-tech skills. For us, the journey, every place you see Next Technologies for Learning within Bloomington Public Schools information, that is really our overall plan that really started back in 2012 and 2013. That's when the district first launched the Safe and Innovative Schools referendum. That was a 10-year referendum that provided that foundational funding around safety in our district as well as innovation and technology. I think that support served us so well because as we got a few years later in 2020, maybe you remember, it wasn't so great to figure out what to do in Bloomington. We were well prepared, having safe schools, but also having a foundation of one-to-one computing for our students and online digital resources for our teachers and instruction, where we were able to weather the pandemic so much better than other districts who hadn't laid that foundation. Fast forward a couple of years, 2023, just a year and a half ago, we were able to pass a renewal on that referendum. Our community came out with such strong support, over 70% positive votes for that, which I think is just a testament to really our collaborative work across the city to say, like, Bloomington is a great place to live and has a great future here in Bloomington. We also went through a strategic planning process over the last year or so, and so we try to, in the tech department, live our mission of empowering and equipping each learner to succeed in a rapidly changing world. Rapidly changing world is the key there for me. We try to look through the lens of technology to modify that to say, really it's the power of technology, the tools and resources we have to empower each and every student. So personalizing to the needs of every student that we encounter to succeed in a rapidly changing world. We don't know what that'll look like 15 or 20 years from now when that student launches into the world. So giving them the skills and the technology, the underlying technology skills is important to us. With that, I'll turn it over to Alexandra.
Hi, I'm going to give you an overview of our computer science program and also a few other things that we're excited about this year, including AI in education and our new Code Academy. So, I don't know, I do have access. It's always nice to ground ourselves in a common definition. So in state policy around a lot of other networks, code.org, CSTA, Computer Science Teachers Association, you'll see this definition of computer science. Computer science means the study of computers, algorithmic processes, including their principles, their hardware, software design, their implementation, and their impacts on society. I bring this forward because it's a lot to wrap your head around. And I'm going to come back to this later when we talk about how Bloomington is going to tackle this definition. First, let's ground ourselves nationally. So when we look at Code.org's 2023 State of CS report, it places Minnesota in last place. We are currently at 28% of high schools are offering CS foundational courses. The success here is that we're up from 21%. I forgot. Sorry, I can't do two things at once.
I'm here for you.
I was wondering why they were staring at me. There you go. Okay. Now I'm off track. Okay. So why this is significant, I mean, we are up from 21% from the 2022 report. However, we are still significantly lagging compared to our neighboring states. I believe like North Dakota last year just passed some significant CS policy around bringing cybersecurity to all students. Thank you. This becomes even more important when we pair that with the need for computer scientists and technologists in Minnesota. So we are looking at just under a need of 100,000 new technologists in the next coming years. And if we don't prepare our students, they're not going to be able to meet this need, and they're going to miss out on some really high-paying jobs and keep them in Minnesota. Minnesota has responded, so we did pass the Computer Science Educational Advancement Act last year, which allowed us to get started with a state plan around CS education. So that includes the development of a CS work group that is putting together how we're going to tackle teacher licensure standards and all the elements that come along with getting us up to speed. Other legislation is House Bill 3492 that's going through right now that's asking for additional funding to support these initiatives. All right, and what are we doing in Bloomington? So Bloomington is unique in that it recognizes the potential of CS and its ability to provide all students with skills to be successful in a technology-driven future. We recognized this 5 years ago. And I'm going to discuss how our program is unique and then actually what the heart of the program looks like. We have approached computer science as something that is essential for every single student because computing and technology exists in every single industry and business right now. So there isn't a space you can go that this is absent. We're not trying to create a whole host of computer scientists. We're trying to create students who are confident using computing skills to be creative and make thoughtful choices and be informed citizens. So in Bloomington, we like to say that computer science is using the power of computers to solve our problems and express ourselves. And I would invite you into any of our elementary classrooms because they have a beautiful little chant that I'm not going to do with you right now, but it involves this. Okay.
It is choreography. Too, isn't it? There's choreography, if I remember.
Yes, there is.
There's choreography, yeah.
The mayor has done this chant.
I have.
This is a way to make computer science accessible. So this is what we tell our parents and our students. And this builds that sense of belonging and that sense of identity and just that I can do this. This isn't something scary. I'm not throwing out algorithmic process at you. Nope. I want you to engage with this so you can solve problems. And it's a friendly way to be. Another important part of our program that we always like to bring forward is this is founded on skills, equity, and joy. So everything we do is founded on these three principles. So skills is teaching abstraction and perseverance to second graders to coding languages in high school. Equity means that we are finding ways to serve all students. It's this shows up in our computer science program by ensuring diverse and accessible entry points into the field. So we're enabling all students to learn in a way that meets them. So students get unplugged activities, they get on-screen coding activities, they get to work with physical computing devices that might look like this. It's meeting every single student's need in a variety of teaching methodologies. And then joy is everywhere. I, again, invite you into our classrooms and not see joy. It is our high school students working with our Bloomington tech staff and watching them get excited about having servers explained to them. It is our kindergartners getting to code with BBots. So our computer science program in Bloomington, we've got about 3 different components to it. So we have computer science immersion, and we have immersion options at 6 different sites, 3 elementary and 3 middle school. And this is really defined by number of hours. So students at these sites can expect to get a minimum of 25 direct CS instruction hours, including integration into core content areas. Direct CS instruction is provided by a CS specialist. At our CS and BPS schools, those students receive CS opportunities through our digital learning specialists throughout the year, also during CS Ed Week, and what we're calling Think CS. It happens in April and May, formerly known as Think Like a Computer Scientist months. It's a long mouthful, so we rebranded. A lot of what we do in the K-8 space is all based on computational thinking. So again, making computer science more accessible. And this is for our students, our teachers, and our families. When we approach teachers and we say, we want you to teach computer science within this math lesson, sometimes that sounds scary, but then we start saying, well, wait, you already teach logic, and we're going to do it with some tinkering, and we're also going to include some collaboration. It breaks down those barriers, and again, creates a sense of belonging for everybody within our system. So just real quickly, how do we meet these computer science needs within our K-8 spaces? We've got a lot of online platforms. Scratch is a coding platform for elementary, and we also use physical computing devices like the one I brought. In the middle school, and the same thing, the systems level up, and then we also have physical computing devices for them as well. In the high school, we have suggested pathways based on student interests. So we know student interest varies, and we want to honor that and provide flexible suggestions no matter where they are at in their journey. A student might enter high school thinking that they want to do a 4-year college. Maybe halfway through they decide a 2-year track is better. Maybe they switch back. So they can. This is designed to have very little prereqs. Hopefully we can get to none someday, and be accessible by all skill levels. And a couple successes this year that we'd like to celebrate is we had our mayor and Education Commissioner Willie Jett come visit one of our elementary immersion schools, Indian Mounds, for CS Ed Week. It was very exciting, and I just absolutely adore this picture. So thank you for being a part of that. And another exciting event in December was the city's proclamation of Bloomington's CS Ed Week. The teacher here, Becca Schultz, said this was absolute highlight of her year. She still talks about it when I see her, and the proclamation is proudly hanging in the Ridgeview Elementary Media Center. So I'm hoping that we can continue to do this and get more proclamations at other sites.
We added the picture. The picture in the lower right there is right out here in the hall after the proclamation, where students wanted to touch the proclamation. So if you ever think those proclamations aren't important, they are important.
Yeah. Another thing that's been thrown at us this year is artificial intelligence, specifically generative AI, and Bloomington has decided to take the lead on this as well, because why stop with computer science? So we worked as a team this summer, and we developed some AI guiding principles built upon our strategic plan that focuses on high standards and expectations, future-ready skills, and cultural proficiency. And this is what leads our work when we meet with teachers, when we talk about how we might introduce this to students, when we discuss how we talk about this with families. We always go back to these 3 elements. And how this looks with teachers, we get a lot of questions here, and I just want to highlight that we centered around student use cases. So when we have PD with teachers, we ask how this might look with students, knowing that AI can help with executive functioning. It can help with creativity and innovation. So helping to center those conversations and really making sure that we are using AI to enhance and empower students' learning, not providing a tool that does it for them. Next, we have our New Code Academy, which is our K-12 online school, also computer science focused. And this is just a phenomenal program because it helps meet the needs, again, of all of our students and all of our families. We know that brick and mortar may not be the best choice for every single family in Bloomington, and we're proud to offer this, and we're proud for all of these reasons. So why New Code? There's too many to name individually, so I'll let you explore that at your leisure. New Code, of course, was built with a partnership from the U of M, and that has resulted in some extremely exceptional educators. So from Holly Skatzum, who wrote the book, Elementary Online Learning, to our other online educators who have been recognized nationally. All right, we're almost almost done. So speaking of impact, again, Bloomington prides itself on being Minnesota's leader in K-12 computer science education. We're soon going to tack on AI to that, don't worry. And the team I get to work with, John, Andrew Rummel, and Holly Skadsum, we think, why stop at Bloomington? So we do also share our knowledge in other places. We've spoken at a few conferences. Holly is just flying in now from Austin, Texas. And we also have shared our knowledge elsewhere. Of course, we could not do any of this work without our other community partners. These partners help us develop our program as well as helping us work with students and enhance that learning with them. All right, and then moving forward, how can we work together? So we always need help developing job shadowing opportunities for students and internships. Students love to hear professionals talk about their experience. So the more non-linear your career path has been, the better. We can find a group of students for you to talk to. They will be impressed that one day you were a cart attendant, and then you were a trailhead lead, and then you were here. I don't actually know if that was yours. I think that was
those
Mark.
Two things.
Yeah. So please come talk to our students. They do love to hear from you. Other options are co-hosting field trips or family engagement events. And field trips can be students or staff. We've had quite a bit of success taking staff on field trips to Target headquarters in US Bank. It's just as important for them to keep learning as our students.
So thank you for that time. We'll take your questions, and if you ask a question, then you'll owe us a speaking engagement within our schools.
Well, first of all, wow. I mean, Dr. Melby, I can understand your enthusiasm now. It's the outstanding work. And the day that I was able to spend, the morning and that I was able to spend, I just got a taste of it. But to hear it in its completeness here and to see this presentation, well done. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Secondly, I'll give you as many proclamations as you would like. Please keep coming back. It's that night in December was special because we had our Omar Badroud Award winner, who is a Bloomington Public Schools employee as well, and so the energy in this room was fantastic, and just the energy of the students as they stood in back and all the chatter that was going on and everything else. It was fantastic. You're on the schedule every December. We will definitely do the proclamation every December, I promise. So, council or school board, questions? Councilmember Mua, and then Councilmember D'Alessandro, and Councilmember Lohman, and anybody else? All right, there we go. Councilmember Mua.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I love that you have AI guiding principles. I don't think that's something we've done yet. And I think that's a fantastic idea, especially because we don't know what the state's going to pass down or what the county's going to pass down. But to stay ahead of that trend, I think that'd be a fantastic idea just to have a principle as we start dipping our toes into AI. So I love that you shared this with us. And I think it's very forward thinking and also like sets us up for the future, right? So like whatever happens, whatever legislation gets passed, we're ready for that. And so we'd love to see the city do something like that too.
Councilmember D'Alessandro.
Thank you. Nice to be with you both. First question is, what are the challenges that you might be experiencing in getting educators in support of CS? I imagine there's some pretty stiff competition for them to actually, if they have coding skills, go get jobs that pay them more and all that kind of thing. And so I'm curious if there have been challenges around that and what you all have seen in support either at the state or whatever, and in making sure that we have the educators that we need to drive the outcomes we're looking for.
Yeah, it's a challenge statewide, and we've been very fortunate in Bloomington that we've been able to attract high-quality educators that want to stay with us and that are able to train others. So last year we had to hire for a new elementary CS specialist, and we just had the expertise with our internal candidates was phenomenal. And hopefully we continue to just grow our own. I don't know what the state is going to do. It really depends on what the workforce group comes up with. But I do know within that plan, there's a lot of talk on the pre-service component of that and what our universities are doing to build computer science into pre-service programs, build them into math educator programs, and just trying to figure out where else that might fit. We're always going to be in stiff competition with business and industry, but hopefully, education can provide those additional perks like the joy of young children and those types. So, I don't know.
Great. May I have a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor? So my second question, thank you, is knowing that the numbers statewide are very low, meaning I think it was 28% or 28%. And then we say we are the leader. Like, what's the gap there? Like, are we the leader because we're at 30, or we're the leader because we're at like the whole school district can take part? Like, help us understand the gap and how much you're either bringing up that number through Bloomington's work, or like, are we the only bright spot in that whole conversation at the moment?
I mean, I'm biased. I think Bloomington is the bright spot, but there are definitely other programs that are leading as well. We are the leader, though, just to be sure. Those numbers are based on high school foundational courses, which really goes back to advanced placement computer science principles, so AP-CSP. We have been offering that in Bloomington for a good 5 years. We know that it's been offered at other places around the state. Another course that they look at is the second level, which is AP-CSA. We didn't come up with a naming structure. College Board did, and we're just offering that for the first year this year. So we lead because of what we're doing in our K-8 spaces and our high school, and that is extremely unique. You will not find another CS immersion program across the state. You would be hard-pressed to find places that are actually doing CS and integration like we are in the K-8 space. So we're leading in that regard, but when you look at that data really centers around high school foundational offerings, which what they mean is that AP-CS class.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll come volunteer, it's not a problem. I'm a computer nerd anyway, and I'm the AV nerd in my family, so I'm happy to come by anytime. Thanks.
I would just add, I think linking those two questions, Councilmember, is great because I think they're related in this way. The Minnesota Department of Education is doing the best job that they can, but it's complicated, and the resources that they're struggling with are the same resources we're struggling with, which is time and too many things to do, and time and resources and time, right? So the READ Act is really sucking up all of the energy of education right now, and trying to maintain programs while you're also trying to grow programs is really a challenge for everybody. Our points of pride, like, are we lifting everybody up? Yeah, Bloomington is. Dr. Holter is on that MDE working group representing all of us in one of, I don't know, how big is the working group?
It's about 20 individuals.
That's helping craft that legislation, working alongside business folks and higher ed folks and so on. So super proud there. And then New Code Academy, our online school, does offer that computer science AP program. So we have a student who's attending who's probably like 14 miles from the Canadian border, who's a full-time New Code Academy student who can take computer science, an AP level computer science course from their home that could move into a CS program at the University of Minnesota. So,
Councilmember Lohman.
I was sure there's somebody before me. So kind of a delicate question here, back on your slide, I think it's 45, which is this computer science in BPS high school. My wife is a very bright person, and I'm lucky. I'm not quite as bright as she is. And so when I look at these pathways here that you have here, if you're going through the process by which to become the interested in CS careers, and or a 4-year CS degree. My question is for those folks who, maybe more of my liking, not as bright as my wife, and can't get into the AP type computer type classes. Is there pathways in which to kind of go through for some of those other ones where that AP is kind of the top end of it? And the reason why I ask that is, just from a demographic standpoint, how does that look? As folks are trying to focus in and trying to get through those pathways and make sure we're making them accessible as possible.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that we're really focusing on is changing that narrative of who can do APCS. So we have 9th graders in it right now that started in 6th grade CS immersion at Olson, and they're doing great. And I think that APCS is an accessible course for any student who wants to take it. And hopefully we can get more students to see that through marketing and communication, and just, again, building that sense of identity earlier before the students get to high school and make those choices of, I'm not this person, I'm not this type of person. They can do all of this, and our staff is there to support them through that. But if you don't want to take a year-long APCS course, what's important to note is that some of these are one-try classes that could still continue that learning and building those foundational skills in CS, like our cybersecurity class or our AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning class. So those might be places for you to kind of continue to explore, see what you're interested in as you build those skills.
That AP computer science course is, I believe it's the only AP course that doesn't have a prereq. So you can come in without having already built up a huge track record of success and get into a program that immediately earns you dual credit.
Well, thank you. I'm far less intimidated now. Yeah. Maybe I'll be able to compete with my wife or the council member across the way.
Director Starks.
Okay, I know we're probably wanting to move on, but I just wanted to add a little bit of context that I think is pretty cool. So, when Director Weiser mentioned that Bloomington was well poised for the pandemic and the challenges that brought, because we already had the one-to-one learning and the teachers had access and students had access to online learning, that started in 2013. So we had a 7-year head start, because a lot of folks across the Twin Cities would be like, how are you guys doing this already? And we're like, well, we had a head start. We didn't know it at the time, but we were creating it. When you look at the work group that, Alexandra, I'm very excited that you're part of, that report that came out, if the timeline holds that the work group is recommending to MDE, schools would be at the place where we are right now in 2031. So we have another 7-year head start with what would go forward. I know the bill that's there now is going to try to speed that up, hopefully. But, so we are just in Bloomington so far ahead of our peers in so many ways. And then as Councilmember Mua mentioned, the AI piece, I see that now. We're going to have another 7-year head start. So I'm really proud of what Bloomington brings. I was actually at a event 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to someone who was quite frustrated with the timeline of 2031, and they found out I was from Bloomington. They're like, oh, never mind. So it's pretty exciting.
Thank you. We will, please.
I just want to thank John and Alexandra, because they're the reason that we're moving forward. And this was also a vision from Les Fujitake that he brought in. He says, we're going to need this, and this will make it more equitable for our community of students. And I think that's become a reality. So thank you.
Absolutely. And
before you cut me off, I'll say that our offer is sincere. You have our emails, and we really do. Kids really do get excited about coming to visit. You might think your life is mundane, but they would really be excited to come over here, and they would really be excited for you to come in and see them. So email, call, if you have an idea, you want to co-host something, just to give us access to your team or your area of expertise, please do take us up on that offer.
Very good. Well, thank you. And congratulations. Outstanding work, and keep it up. Outstanding. Thank you. Moving on to item 2.4 on our agenda. This is an update on the Bloomington Forward projects. Leah Hughes from our Parks and Recs staff is here.
Going to be
Let us
tough
do the update.
following kids with loving up proclamations.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do my best, though. All right, thank you. Welcome, school board members, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, city council members, for inviting me here. As mentioned, my name's Leah Hughes. I'm the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation, and I'm going to give you a Bloomington Forward update. I know we're running late, so I'm going to keep this really brief and high level, so if you have questions at the end, I will absolutely take the time to answer those for you. But I'm going to try to breeze through this pretty quick because I know you guys have a lot on the agenda. So first and foremost, what the things I'm going to try to explain to you tonight are what the 3 projects are, what is it included in each project, the timelines, and then how Bloomington Public Schools and the school board can be engaged in these processes. What is Bloomington Forward? Essentially what it is it's a $155 million infrastructure investment for 3 significant projects in Bloomington. All of these projects have regional significance, which means not only are they serving the Bloomington community, but they are drawing individuals from outside the area, including the state and the region. How do we get here? A little bit of background. There's a lot of work that went into this. Starting with City Council, they had to work to figure out what these projects were going to be and develop the Bloomington Forward plan. Obviously, there was a lot of work that went into getting this into legislation, and then ultimately on November 7th, the residents decided that these projects, they wanted to move forward and that they were a significant investment that they wanted to make in the community going forward. Ultimately, what happened is we have a half-cent sales tax option that is going to go into effect actually April 1st. It's going to bring in $155 million to cover the projects, these 3 projects, with the addition of $4 million in state bonding that is going to go, it will be divided between 2 projects, one for pre-design for the Bloomington Ice Garden, and then also for the public health component of the Community Health and Wellness Center. So just a little bit about each project. The Community Health and Wellness Center, this is by far going to be the largest of the 3 projects. The total cost is $101.8 million, $100 million coming from that sales tax, and then $1.8 coming from that bonding from the state. What you see before you is some of the information that we have gathered over the last 10 years. The Community Health and Wellness Center has been a conversation that Diane Kirby and many of the city departments, and frankly, a number of you in this room, frankly, have been working on for quite some time. So well done, it's coming to fruition. So congratulations on all that work. So this lists some of the feedback that was gleaned in 2019 or prior in many of the task force and community engagement processes that happened before then. But as many of us have mentioned tonight, the pandemic happened, so that has changed the landscape for some of the things. So what we're going to be doing now with the Community Health and Wellness Center is we are going to be engaging in a new feasibility study and statistically valid survey that will actually be starting this spring, in addition to an extensive community engagement process that will happen between 2024 and 2025. What we're trying to do is frankly figure out, are these still the amenities that the community wants and needs in this center? In addition to, if so, how have they changed or ebbed within the last few years as we've managed the pandemic and now we're coming out and have kind of new expectations within the community. The Community Health and Wellness Center, in addition to the other 2 projects, have formed teams. Literally November 8th, we were getting calls, what's your plan? We've got a plan. It took us 3 months to get it. So what we've been doing over the last 3 months is assembling staff teams, writing RFPs, hiring consultants to deliver the work, and figuring out who across city departments are going to be engaged in these processes. This is a team, full hands-on sport, and we've got the best players on the field for all 3 of these projects, including many, many cross-departmental individuals that are serving on both the lead staff teams and the project teams for all 3 of these. The Community Health and Wellness Center timeline, you'll notice that All of the timelines I talk about tonight are very aggressive. That is by design. Inflation is real. We know that these budget dollars are really important, and we want to try to deliver these projects as quickly and efficiently as we can, so we are getting the most bang for our buck. So as I move into some of these timelines, you're going to notice that, frankly, a lot of them have already started with some of the capacities, or they are soon to start. We are in the process of hiring our architect and engineering firm for the Community Health and Wellness Center. The RFP, or request for proposal, I'll try to let you know what the acronyms are because I know they can be tricky, was posted on February 1st. So we will be interviewing and hiring the architects and engineers for that project starting mid-April. It's really important to get the architects and engineers on board with these projects early because they need to be a part of that engagement. They need to hear what the community is saying and what sort of trends they're seeing coming forward, so that way they can base their designs and their decisions off of that feedback that we're getting. Shortly after that, we'll be hiring the construction manager for this project. What the construction manager does is they manage all the background details, and they're the doers with the contracts and the acting as liaison and the plans and the schedules and making sure everything is going according to plan and staying on schedule as intended. That individual will be hired starting in July. The feasibility assessment that will be happening for the Community Health and Wellness Center, we just hired Pros Consulting as the feasibility firm that will be helping us with that. What that's going to help us do is do that re-engagement with the community. And so that's going to include a market analysis. An example of why that needs to happen is prior to 2019, there are a lot of gyms and exercise facilities in the city of Bloomington. Many of those have faltered or failed between now and 2019. So just an example of us needing to revisit the market, revisit what the community is looking for through market analysis, figure out what the community is looking for and if it's still the same as it was before through that stakeholder and community engagement. And that will help us identify core programs in addition to frankly, figuring out what people want in this facility, what they're willing to pay for, and how much they're willing to pay for it. So then we can also, at the tail end of that feasibility study, figure out what the operations may look like for this facility going forward. We do have a construction timeline for the Community Health and Wellness Center. 2024 and 25 are predominantly going to be community engagement. That will help inform the architect and engineering firm. 2025 will still include some of that engagement as we move more into the design phase of figuring out what the spaces will actually look like and entail. And then 25 and 26 will be the construction with the hope that a grand opening would happen either optimistically the end of 26, more likely sometime in 2027. I will say that these are draft timelines because, again, we have not hired the architects or the construction managers yet. We think this is feasible, and we're basing that off of conversations that we've had with professionals in the field. So our hope is that once those firms are on board, that they reaffirm that this is possible and we move forward from there. Next is the Mile Creek Corridor project. This is probably the less vetted of all of the projects. This is ultimately a natural resources project. 9 Mile Corridor is considered a gem in the city of Bloomington. It includes 3 parks, Harrison, Moyer, and Central Park. It is also a connection to the Minnesota State Trail along the Minnesota River, in addition to having many, many other just wonderful natural resource amenities that we want to preserve and maintain going forward. So really this ballot item is really a commitment to natural resources in Bloomington through this really important regional asset, natural resource that Bloomington has. The cost for that project is $20 million. It also has a project team. This project team is unique in that it's a combination of City of Bloomington engineering, facility, natural resources, park maintenance, and recreation staff. And so there's a lot of individuals that are going to be working on this project, in addition to some of our partners, including U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the 9 Mile Creek Watershed District, and probably a few people I'm forgetting because I'm trying to be brief. But it's going to be not only, the DNR. It's going to be, again, a real, truly natural resource collaboration between the city, the state, and other entities that are heavily invested in this particular area. The timeline for this, we are just in the process of writing requests for proposals for architects and engineers. The council will be looking at some of those things coming up in the next month. May and June, we are doing a technical and environmental analysis with some of those partners that that I mentioned. Basically, we need to do an analysis of the natural resources during the growing season, so we can kind of figure out what's there, what we need to work around as far as doing as little to disturb some of the wildlife as we can during certain parts of the season. So that's going to inform some of the other processes. We also will be starting pretty significant community engagement. There are a lot of people in Bloomington that are really invested in this project, and we want to make sure that we get them on board and get their feedback and start that early as we start assessing the rest of the project. And so you'll be seeing stakeholder engagement for this project throughout the entire time as well, starting this spring. It will likely go up through October for community engagement, and then between 24 and 25, again, when we get to 30% design, 60% design, we'll continue revisiting the feedback with the community and some of those stakeholders as we move through the project. Construction for this project will be probably in 26 and 27. The Bloomington Ice Garden is, frankly, it was the easiest of all the projects. We know exactly what's not working in Big, which is at this point is almost everything. I don't know if any of you have driven by it lately, but we currently have a temporary chiller parked outside plugged in because we have 2 things that have failed in the last month. So Big just frankly is an aging infrastructure issue. And so all the mechanical systems need to be redone and replaced. It is not ADA compliant, so we need to make sure that accessibility is definitely looked at and improved in that space, in addition to just wanting to increase the user and guest experience there. Big is one of the top 3 heaviest used ice arenas in the state. Every time I give this presentation, we always ask if there's hockey parents in the room. I'm shocked at how many hockey parents there are. I probably shouldn't be, but you are just everywhere. And so basically what we've been doing in 2023 is we did hire JLG to do a pre-assessment. So what they did is they went in with electrical, mechanical, all these different teams to just assess the current facility, figure out what we have, figure out what we need and what that's going to cost, in addition to prioritizing all of these different systems. So obviously replacing the ice system is priority number 1 because of the function of that space. That pre-assessment finished in December of 2023. It is now moved into the design phase. And so what we're doing now is we're taking that information and we are starting to build the big packages for the long lead items that we need to purchase. For example, it takes 18 to 20 months to get the ice mechanicals ordered and shipped to us. So there are certain items that we need to design and order now in order for them to show up in 2025 when the construction for some of those things actually starts. You are going to see some changes at the Bloomington Ice Garden starting this summer. We are going to do some construction that will not impact the actual physical use of the space quite yet, but we do need to get a jump start on some of the changes that we're making with that mechanical system, meaning that we need to build the envelope the new mechanicals will go in, because this is a really aggressive timeline, mainly due to us not wanting to impact the Bloomington high school and youth hockey seasons. So we're going to break ground this summer to do some of the non-ice impacting work. There will be a full shutdown starting in March of 2025 where everything will be shut down and Big's going to look like an anthill. There's going to be 1 million crews in there working over the course of 6 months with the goal to reopen Big for the 2025 hockey season in September or early October. So we've got a lot going on, and that's probably the project that's the furthest along because we knew exactly what we need to do with that one. The project team here, this one's a little bit different. We already did the stakeholder engagement as a part of the assessment, so you're not going to see some of the same community departments or city departments listed on this because, frankly, Big has really set stakeholders that we've been engaging this entire time. In fact, Bloomington Public Schools, you'll like to know that I was meeting with your athletic directors at 10 a.m. this morning to talk about what exactly do your kids need in this space. And so that is something that you'll see continuously through this project too. We will be engaging with our main stakeholders and the main users to make sure that we are building the biggest and best Bloomington ice garden that we can for the next generation. The timeline, as I mentioned, we're going to start basically ordering things in Q1 of this year. We're going to break ground early summer and then do the full shutdown March 2025, and then hopefully reopen in September, October of 2025. Ways that you can get engaged and bring your families to the engagement part of this process is we have transitioned what used to be the Bloomington Forward referendum page into a project tracking page now. So we spent basically December and January transitioning that page to include the information that we have on these projects up to date. We kept a lot of the facts from the referendum so people knew, again, how we got here. But this page is going to be a living, breathing page that as we move through these projects, updates are put on this page so people can have a one-stop shop where they can figure out where we're at, where you can be engaged. So when community engagement on any of the 3 projects will happen, dates, times, locations, in addition to an e-subscribed option if people want updates emailed into their email boxes. The Parks and Rec team, who owns all 3 of these projects, because essentially we will manage and operate them, will be doing regular email updates if people are interested in getting on that e-news list. And we have a website, or I'm sorry, an email that is dedicated to this project. So if any of your families, staff, whomever have questions, they can email the forward@bloomington.gov email. That is going to go to one bucket where, depending on what the question is, it will be sent to the appropriate city staff who can respond to that question within 24 hours. In addition to a lot of the other familiar ways of engagement, like the Bloomington Let's Talk website, you can put information on as well. So we're trying to find as many online and physical ways that the community can engage with any or all of these projects as much as they would like. So if you could please share that information or participate yourselves, that would be really a great way to become involved. And that was really quick. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'd be happy to answer anything.
Well, Council, we just heard this 2 nights ago, so there shouldn't be any questions from the Council.
So I'd be shocked if any of you had questions, but we have some new friends here, so.
We do.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I guess just a small question, I guess. So the locker rooms for the high schools, is that going to be coming at any cost to the district, I guess is my only question?
I think that's yet to be determined. I mean, that's a conversation that I know city staff are having with school district staff. I mean, the conversation today really revolved around what are your needs? I mean, how many do you need? What do you need to look like for the format? Do you need certain tech and training spaces for your kids? But that conversation, I think, is something that's yet to be had. Yeah.
Mr. Verbrugge?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and council members, you might have heard Leah refer to timelines a couple times during the presentation. And this is one thing that we are really focused on, especially with the big project, because if we lose even a month on our timeline, we lose a year. And so, we know there's a really strong interest and excitement in the community for all of these projects, and we need to demonstrate progress. So the timelines we have up there, our staff is understanding that we are going to be laser focused on hitting those timelines and delivering these projects on time.
Anything else?
Director Beebe.
When you talked about 155 million from the half-cent tax, was that per year or over how many years?
That is over 20 years.
20 years.
Yep. So the way the sales tax will work is it will be collected over the course of 20 years, or frankly less. The one thing with the sales tax is if it generates more than we expected, once it reaches that 155 million, then it will sunset. So it's 20 years or less, I guess, is a more appropriate way of saying that. It cannot go beyond 20 years, and it cannot be transitioned to any other project. So that sales tax is used only for these 3 projects that the Bloomington voters voted to use that tax for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Melby? Anything to add on this?
I was just getting ready for my update.
Let's get to the next one. Very good. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. We will get to the update then. 2.5, our superintendent update. Dr. Melby.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the opportunity to give a brief update. I think it's exciting tonight because, as Council Member Carter pointed out, we had the mental health update, and a year and a half ago we all left going, "Oh boy!" And now you get to hear things have been happening, and we're working hard to address and support issues. You got to, not hear me cheerlead and hear some other people cheerlead about our amazing computer science program in Bloomington, and we're just going to continue to spread that word because I think it can attract families either to move into town or to open enroll to our district, which would be beneficial either way. Better if they move to town. I get that. And the conversation about the projects is helpful for our understanding, and as Leah pointed out, she met with our ADs today. Rod and I are meeting with the ADs probably next week. The aggressive timeline is aggressive, so we're going to be very busy working to understand how the school district can take advantage, if I can put it that way, of the improvements at Big and make sure that our kids and families have the best experience they can have when accessing the facility. So board members, a lot more to come probably pretty quickly on our involvement with Big. A couple other updates. He's not here tonight, but I'll publicly thank Chief Hodges. If you remember, at the end of last legislative session, there was a lot of heartburn around Minnesota with superintendents and school districts and law enforcement agencies around school liaison officers or school resource officers, which led to a lot of relationships being severed and districts losing those officers in their buildings. That never happened in Bloomington. Chief Hodges and I met regularly. I appreciate the chiefs and the city's commitment to having supports in our schools, even though there was heartburn that came along with having those supports in the schools based on some of the law changes, and just the officers who were committed to showing up and doing that work in our schools every day. So we're thankful for that. Just so the public knows, Chief Hodges and I have a quarterly standing coffee meeting. You can often find us at the Caribou at the corner of Old Shakopee in France. He's a little more famous than I am, even though I have my Melby Monthly. I don't quite get it, but people come up. He's in uniform. That probably helps, right? But so we get a lot of community engagement just having coffee a few times a year. And I appreciate the partnership and the collaboration. I know that some city council members and probably school board members are curious. We've been working on our stadium issues and the sound issue in particular, which was our biggest hurdle to clear from the Planning Commission meeting. So we have utilized one of the consultants recommended by city staff, and we have the results of their study on sound, and actually based on their analytics and the data, we have data now that supports that the stadium should fall within the city sound ordinance. So we are coming back to start with the Planning Commission process shortly. We hope to get through that process and City Council process early this summer and put the projects out to bid so we can get construction started, and not next fall, but the fall after, have stadiums hopefully ready to use. Could be exciting fall with Big and for sports in Bloomington, right? I know some folks also wanted to just get an update. If you've been watching our school board meetings or communications we put out, it's no secret that we're working hard to right-size our budget for the next school year. The board actually approved that earlier this week. The reasons that we have to right-size our budget in the Bloomington Public Schools are really two big things, and that's the ending of federal ESSER money that we had been receiving throughout the pandemic years, which we used to maintain programming and staffing at levels and support students and families, and our enrollment. Our enrollment we've been predicting to decline, and that prediction is coming true. And so we are working hard on plans to increase enrollment, things like our computer science program and other great, there's so many great things happening in the Bloomington Public Schools that I'm confident that we can impact our enrollment, but it is decreasing, and so we're going to adjust our budget by $4 million, roughly $4 million, a little over $4 million for next year. Just for context, that represents about 2% of our annual budget. And then folks watching or school board members know this, but city council members might go, well, didn't the state, just unload the checkbook on schools last year, record funding year? Yes, it was record funding, but about half of that record funding went into categorical areas that cannot be used in our general fund, which is where we have to make these adjustments. So we continue to advocate. Matter of fact, a number of board members and I are going to be over in St. Paul next week to talk about our legislative priorities. If you just want a quick soundbite, special education funding, English learner funding, those are two things that would really help Bloomington Public Schools budget issues. In terms of the enrollment decline, I do have some good news to share because we started this right-sizing our budget process in December, got board approval on our plan just 3 days ago, and now we're doing staffing sheets. I won't get too in the weeds with how school staffing works, but our principals then get their staffing sheets and understand what they've got to work with. And when we started our process, just based on our anticipated enrollment, we were predicting 8 full-time equivalencies, teacher FTEs, to be reduced just due to the enrollment. And then when we finalized our staffing sheets in the last week, that number shrunk to 1. So we are seeing some enrollment improvement, not where we want to see it, but there's a little bit of good news there. And as I said, we're working on a plan to address that as well. And I just wanted to point it out, there's always room for improvement, but our parent, student, staff satisfaction survey results, which we've been sharing at school board meetings, are all strong, I think, for the most part. Our contracts, in particular our teacher contract, is settled, so we've got stability and, general happiness, amongst a lot of our clients, and so we got to build on that as we work on our enrollment. You just heard about our computer science program earlier tonight. That's one example of our state-leading work we're doing in the district. Our career pathways work and our partnerships with institutions of higher ed like Normandale Community College, Hennepin Tech are also leading the way. An exciting update, I think probably some of the seed of these conversations took part in what the mayor's done convening this workforce steering committee and the work happening there, but because of those summer relationships that I've made with folks on that committee, we're holding a meeing, hopefully, Kimmy's here in the room trying to organize it, it's tough, but with folks from our burgeoning semiconductor industry in Bloomington, to meet with myself, John, Alexandra, and some others in the district to talk about how we can quickly build that pathway for our students to support that industry and have great high-paying jobs right here in Bloomington. I said it earlier, somebody took my thunder, and Bloomington's the biggest small town in the world, in my opinion. And so people love it here, they grow up here, they might leave and check out the world, but then they come back and they buy a house and they raise their family and they send them to the Bloomington Public Schools. And we're graduating 700 to 800 young adults every year that can help fill some of the workforce needs in Bloomington, so we want to keep working with you on that. And then finally, I regularly hear from students. I have some students at Jefferson who are dying to plan their own Bloomington Lollapalooza, if you will, to celebrate how awesome Bloomington is. I hear from board members, I hear from parents in the district looking for more kind of one Bloomington events that we can develop and brag, as the mayor likes to say, about and have fun in Bloomington. So I'm just looking forward to sharing some of those ideas with the mayor and city manager and maybe getting some momentum on some things like that in the future. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate it. And please let us know how we can continue to work together on all of these things that you have talked about. And I say that to the rest of the board as well. Please let us know. Councilmember D'Alessandro, quick question?
Quick comment. Yeah, quick question. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Melby, one of the things that I didn't see on the agenda tonight that I was hoping that we might get an update on, so I'm going to ask that we might be able to do this next time, is the impact on the Bloomington School District of the free lunch program that was rolled out in the past year. I'd like to know if you have the ability to give us an update on how that's going, what you're seeing in terms of improvements. That whole thing was rolled out in order to improve the educational outcomes for folks, because hungry kids can't learn, right, as well. And so anything you guys can pull together for our next meeting would be great. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Mr. Verbrugge,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members. I'm going to apologize in advance. I left my reading glasses in the car, so I don't know if my arms are long enough. I want to pick up where Dr. Melby left off in talking about sort of this one Bloomington idea of events in our community and how they help us to build community. I want to remind everybody again that our mission is to cultivate an enduring and remarkable community where people want to be. We have 3 overarching objectives: a welcoming community, a healthy community, which thank you to Jennifer and Hannah for their presentation this evening and the work they do with our public health to advance a healthy community, and then a community that has equitable economic growth. So those are our 3 keys. So the welcoming community piece fits in with what Dr. Melby was saying. So a couple of events we have coming up. Bloomington Home Fair is coming on April 20th, and thank you to the school district allowing us to use Valley View Middle School for that event. Before, this has been called the Home Improvement Fair, and we are, because we're not doing things the way we've always done them, we are taking a different approach, and we are broadening what the scope of the fair is, right? So it's basically focused not just on home improvement, but also about home ownership opportunities and financial wellness. So we're going to be connecting the community with housing resources that promote some of those things, as well as connecting current and potential home buyers with industry professionals. And then we're going to be creating an additional space for community engagement. The fair is committed to creating an inclusive and welcoming environment for all our attendees, whether they're first-time home buyer, a renter looking to transition into home ownership, a current homeowner, or simply interested in resources to promote financial wellness. So the website for that is blm.mn/homefair, which is pretty easy to remember. Also, the Welcome to Bloomington design and implementation teams have worked together to produce new ways or amplify existing ways that help the city create a welcoming community for new and current residents. One component of the plan is an annual cultural fair that would include multicultural performances and entertainment, food trucks, crafts, multi-generational activities, and that's going to be highlighting the diversity of our interconnected community. Currently, we have a subgroup of the Welcome to Bloomington design team that is serving as the planning committee members for that event, and this is the part where they have asked me to issue an open invitation to anybody here if you would like to be part of that planning committee team. We are always looking for more people who are willing to help. We do have a short list of event planners that we're interviewing, and we'll be making selections soon for that. The event coordinator will guide the planning effort with support from our Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. We'll have monthly and then bi-weekly meetings with the planning committee leading up to the event itself, with the cultural fair scheduled for late August or early September, so you can look for a more precise date to be coming soon. So that's in the city events. Not done yet. I'm almost there. I know. Well, I'm back and forth. There was interest in issues related to affordable housing within the community. And this is, frankly, council members and board members a point of pride for the city. I tell people far and wide that my belief, and it's backed up by data, is that Bloomington is doing more to advance housing that's affordable than just about any other community in the region. Maybe the core cities are doing more, but I'd say maybe even on a per capita basis, we're competing very well with them. So back in 2019, we established an opportunity, or we adopted an opportunity housing ordinance and created an affordable housing trust fund so that we had tools to start doing this work. So our affordable housing goal for the period of 2021 to 2030, which is set by the Metropolitan Council, was for 842 new units. Now that's the goal for 2030, 842 units. In 21 and 22, we already had 730 that were open, under construction, or approved and awaiting construction. As of 2023, 537 units affordable at or below the 60% area median income were opened and under construction, and an additional 347 affordable units are approved for development. So in terms of completed or under construction, we are well ahead of schedule for our 2030 goal. I will tell you that one of the priority focuses right now is on deeply affordable units. We're having a lot of success in the 50 to 80% AMI. AMI is area median income, and it's in that 30 to 50 range where it really takes a lot of resources to have eligible units in that range get constructed. We have to develop a lot of partnerships with a lot of different funding entities, Minnesota Housing Finance, and a lot of different resources that we pull in. But one of the comments that we made this morning at the business connection event that Dr. Melby was cheerleading at, was our recognition that having housing that's affordable is a really important component of making sure that we have a workforce that's going to be able to serve the businesses in our community. So while school district is working on workforce, we're working on workforce, know that we're also doing really well working on affordable housing. Let's see. Hennepin, there was a question about how we are addressing issues of homelessness within our community. I think that many of you are aware that we do have a Hennepin County operated shelter service at the Holiday Inn site at 94th and 35W. Hennepin County has submitted an application to amend Bloomington City Code by making congregate living facilities interim uses in our I-2 industrial zoning district, which is where that's located. So congregate living facilities are currently not allowed in that district. The county is currently leasing rooms at the Holiday Inn for the purpose of temporarily providing shelter to house unhoused individuals. So you might ask the question, well, if it's not allowed, how is that operating now? With our code related to hotels, if they have a stay that's longer than 30 days, they would be an extended stay. And so the hotel has permission to house people for less than 30 days at a time. And so the county is aware of that. And so they're managing the people that they're serving in that facility so that they are being conscious of our code and remaining within it, because it is still a hotel use for zoning purposes. So should the city council approve the amendment for the zoning district, it would open the door for the county to apply subsequently for an interim use permit for a temporary conversion of the hotel for congregate living. The code amendment is scheduled for public hearing at the Planning Commission on March 7th, and a public hearing before the city council is anticipated on April 1st. In terms of some of the more human service components of the homelessness issue, our public health team is regularly working with our partners to provide services such as immunizations, connections to resources such as WIC, home visiting, early childhood screening, and partners to help meet needs like Closet of Hope. We know we had some concerns earlier about the number of folks who were trying to utilize services at VEEP. We know that there are students in Bloomington schools, and we are wanting to continue to work with the school district to make sure that there is permanence in education, because we know that transience is a barrier for children to succeed, right? So we're making sure that hopefully the county folks are working well with the school district folks to be cognizant of that. One other issue that was requested to discuss was about workforce, and specifically workforce related to school district interests. You may be familiar with Bloom in Bloomington, which is an internship program that we launched for the first time last year. It was very successful. Right now we have 12 Bloomington Public School students who have applied for this year's Bloom in Bloomington cohort. That application is still open, so it closes on Sunday, as a matter of fact. So if you want to amplify through social media, I would encourage you to do that. Interested students can apply at our website under our government jobs link, where the Bloom internship is posted. So the students will work Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week. It's over the summer, not pulling them out of school. Fridays are a paid day. However, the students will be attending a leadership academy on Fridays, where they'll also learn leadership and get other professional development. So we focus on exposure in the workplace to professional skills, but then we also have focus time to make sure that we're doing professional and leadership development at the same time. So it's really a wonderful program. Our participants last year, I think, got an awful lot out of it, and as we continue to build the program, it's only going to become more valuable for our participants. As a matter of fact, we just hired one of our cohort from last summer to be an employee in our Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, and she is an absolute rock star. So products of Bloomington schools are doing great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verbrugge. Director Olson, go ahead.
May I ask a question?
You certainly may.
Or a comment? I don't know. So we have a high-level early childhood advocacy committee, of which Samoa's wife is on. And they have been, you probably know, they're doing a combined baby fair with the city and the schools. And I just wanted to mention that I think this group would be really excited about helping out with that Welcome to Bloomington committee that you said that you need people to plan, because they're very enthusiastic about welcoming people into our early childhood programs, and I think they'd be great.
Great. I'll share that with our staff. Thank you, Director.
Okay.
Additional comments? Councilmember Lohman?
Thank you, Mayor. I know that the last time we had gotten together, and I'm reminded by Councilman D'Alessandro, one of the other issues that was brought forward was around gun violence, in particular with the events that just took place. I wonder if it makes some sense the next time we get together to bring that issue forward. It's always a pressing issue with schools and also with things that have happened recently.
Duly noted. Thank you. My final question for either of you, the next planned or possible meeting of this group together?
Mr. Mayor and council members would certainly look to the bodies to give us direction. I think what we'd like to do, we had best intentions this year, didn't quite land that bird yet, but I'd like to get in a regular cadence of maybe have a meeting right after the start of the school year, perhaps one mid-year and one right towards the end of the year. And if 3 is too many, then at least certainly doing it twice a year, so that we could potentially do September or February, March, somewhere in that neighborhood.
All right,
Superintendent, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I enjoy the meetings, and I will certainly talk to our chair and vice chair as we make our plans and get back to you on a cadence, if you will.
Very good.
Yep.
All right. Last thing of the evening, Mr. Chair. Any comments?
I just want to say thank you for hosting us here and for the very robust conversation today.
You're always welcome. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and thank you for the conversation, for the questions. Thanks to the staff for some outstanding information. Very exciting to hear so many different things. The one thing that I took note of, the number of times I heard partnerships, I heard alignment twice, I heard partners and collaboration. All that we're doing, I mean, this is an obvious example, but everything else that we're doing, as we do, the more that we do those type of things, the more successful we're all going to be in everything we have. And we heard it so many times tonight, and I don't think we could be as far as we are as a community without those partnerships and those collaborations, and so let's continue to look for those. So thank you all so very much for being here this evening. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks much. We are adjourned.
As are we. We are also adjourned. Thank you.